Gang Saving Rivers. That sounds like an exciting title. Conservation, as you probably know, is a matter of life and death. 3 weeks ago, almost exactly to the hour, shortly after midnight, a flash flood hit without warning in the city of Mocoa, the capital of Putumayo department in the Colombian Amazonia. Over 300 people were killed, and another 100 people or so are still missing. Conservation International's team spent the previous week in Mocoa and left only a couple of hours before the flash flood actually happened. The guy who took them to the airport and his family were amongst the perished. And whilst our staff were fine, over a dozen of our partners are among the dead and the missing. The flash flood and its impact on people were caused by a combination of factors such as poor urban planning, obviously heavy rains, but also extensive deforestation in the Piedmont region, where the Andean mountains drop down towards the Amazon lowlands. And as we work to help our partners in Mocoa put their homes and lives together again, this serves as a cautionary tale about what happens when ecosystems that regulate water are destroyed and their function, the water regulatory function, is diminished. Loss of ecosystems that regulate water flow can result in flash floods when you have very heavy rainfall and you have a steep slope that pulls with it soil and rocks and vegetation, just like what happened in Mocoa. But when there are times of little rain, then the loss of these same ecosystems can result in drought and in water stress. And this is a challenge that's particularly urgent for cities, and no more so than cities in Latin America. Latin America is the most urbanized region in the world. Over 80% of people in Latin America live in urban areas. And one of the most important ways that people in Latin America benefit from nature is through water. Water for drinking, for agriculture, for industrial purposes, for energy production. And in three of the mega cities in the region, Mexico City, Bogota, and Rio de Janeiro, that together have a population of about 45 million people. Just to put that in perspective, that's more than the people that live in California and almost as many people as live in Spain. In these three cities, we're working with a range of partners, national and local governments, companies, and of course communities, to secure the ecosystems that provide most of the water that these cities consume. Most of the water in places like Mexico City come from the water forest, a small area between Mexico City, Toluca, and Cuernavaca. In Rio de Janeiro, the water comes from the Guandú and Paraíba do Sul watersheds. And in Bogota, it comes from the Bogota conservation corridors, and that contains some of the largest, actually the largest paramos in the world. Paramos are also known as Andean moorlands, and is an ecosystem that's only found in Latin America. Unfortunately, these ecosystems that we so much depend upon are under threat from urban expansion and from agricultural practices. In Mexico City, the Bosque de Agua, the water forest, is being chipped away at about 1% per year. The Atlantic forest in the watersheds around Rio de Janeiro are has already been heavily deforested. And in Bogota, the water regulating wetlands within the city have declined with a whopping 99% since the 1940s. Now, if we stick to Bogota and we go higher up in the mountains above the city, we have these paramos that occur over 9,000 feet in altitude. This photo here is from Chingasa National Park that provides a staggering 80% of the water that's consumed by the people of Bogota, the 11 million people in the city. So it's about a fifth of the country's population that depend on this national park for their water consumption. And these ecosystems are absolutely stunning. And you see the plants here, they're known as frailejones. They have little furry leaves, actually capture the moisture out of the clouds and eventually make it available for people to consume. So it's really a natural water factory. If you then add another of the paramos, the Sumapaz Paramo, which is the largest in the world, you have another 15% of the water that people in Bogota consume. And historically, the water used to get to the city through one of the 192 streams that was flowing into the city. But as has happened in many cities around the world, most of those streams, of course, have been built over or diverted, and the few that remain are degraded and contaminated. So you might ask yourselves, with environmental degradation causing landslides that kill hundreds of people, including our partners and friends, and many of the cities in the region facing water stress, what on earth could someone be optimistic about when it comes to conservation of ecosystems that provide water in Latin America? So let me tell you about a shining success in an unexpected place, Quebrada Las Delicias. Conservation of this stream began about 10 years ago when some of my colleagues in Conservation International in Colombia decided to set out to demonstrate that you can restore these ecosystems with benefits to people. And so they started conducting a scientific assessment, because science matters. They identified the stream that had the best enabling conditions, both from a social and from an ecological perspective, to allow for a successful recovery. And this was the stream they settled on, Quebrada Las Delicias. It's about a 15-minute walk from the apartment where I live in Bogota. It stretches from some of the high-end neighborhoods close to the city center, up through marginal areas at the edge of the city, into the hills of the eastern side of Bogota, the Cerros Orientales. This is what Quebrada Las Delicias looked like in 2008. More of a garbage dump, really. So obviously the first task was to figure out how to clean up the river together with local communities. So working with the communities, we collectively removed about 150 cubic meters of trash, including a dead body, because the zone or the area around this river was really no man's land. It wasn't a safe place for people to walk or to enjoy nature. After the cleaning of the garbage, most of the vegetation in the area was actually invasive, a plant known as gorse. And so the team then had to work with the communities to remove about 1.5 hectares of invasive gorse. Then they set out to replant with native vegetation, over 8,000 plants and vertical gardens in the lower parts of the stream. They engaged graffiti artists from the local neighborhoods to paint nature-based themes on the remaining concrete areas around the stream. And then, of course, they involved local children in a range of activities to raise awareness and create local ownership of the project. This included a carnival to launch the project and to increase the local appreciation for ecosystems that provide water to people. At one stage in the project, we employed 10 gang members to help in the restoration efforts and to help us to monitor birds and wildlife that have returned to this area as a result of the restoration work. So far, we've recorded the return of 2 species of hummingbirds, a flycatcher, and even the turkey-like Andean guan can now be seen along the stream. Today, you can join local guides and go for a walk about 1.5 miles. You end up at this spot, which is a 140 feet tall waterfall from the center of a city of 11 million people. It really is quite extraordinary. And by involving local authorities, we've managed to get the police to patrol the area from 5:30 in the morning to 10 o'clock, so people can walk and enjoy nature without being worried about their security. And I would say that what more than anything makes me optimistic about this are the local leaders that have emerged through these efforts. And I think that no one is more inspiring than my friend Danilo Ochoa. Danilo grew up on the streets of Bogota. He joined a gang when he was 14. He did drugs. He spent a stint in prison. But he has really turned his life around. And through his engagement in the river restoration and conservation efforts, he's become a respected community leader. He now runs a small art center, art gallery next to the stream, where he teaches conservation, art, painting to local kids to keep them out of trouble. And of course, this has a life-changing effect on the kids who participate, but it also benefits society. The cost of keeping a youth in a detention center in Bogota is about $5,500 a year. And the work of Danilo and the other community leaders have resulted in savings because of the reduced demand for youth detention. We've generated some concrete results, both in terms of recovering ecosystems and seeing species returning, but the path has also become the second most popular nature trail in Bogota, and more than 3,000 people a week enjoy nature along the Quebrada Las Delicias. The project has received the Global Best Practice of Ecological Restoration Award because of the effort, and I think we can proudly say that it's a model for restoration that's now being replicated elsewhere. So we've come a long way from the garbage dump. Here's another photo from when the project started in 2008, where cows were denuding the vegetation and contaminating Quebrada Las Delicias. And this is from last Saturday when I walked with my daughter up to the stream. You can see how it's been replaced by lush vegetation and a walking trail that people can enjoy and connect with nature on a daily basis. Today, we're building on these successes and replicating this approach together with the municipality of Bogota, the Regional Environmental Authority and the Water Authority, as well as civil society and community organization. And we're applying the similar method for streams in Usaquén, Chapinero, Usme, and Sumapaz. And to really scale up our efforts, we were also working with the same partners on a $50 million Green Climate Fund project that aims to conserve the entire Bogota conservation corridor that produces the total of 95% of the water that's consumed by Bogota. I think that both Colombia's fragile peace accord and avoidance of disasters like the one we saw in Mocoa depend on efforts such as the one in Quebrada Las Delicias, where communities are coming together to restore and conserve ecosystems and to deliver the peace, the security, and the prosperity that Colombia's people desire and deserve. So peace with nature and peace for people, that's a pretty good reason for Earth Optimism. And I want to end by remembering our partners in the Biocuencas project and those from Corpo Amazonia who were lost or who lost family and homes in the Mocoa flash flood. And of course, by thanking the dedicated leaders who have inspired us, who have made the work in Quebrada Las Delicias possible, and who have created a conservation success in one of the most unlikely of places. So Patricia Bejarano and Fabio Arjona from Conservation International in Colombia, and community leaders like Sofia Lopez and Danilo Ochoa. And of course, the many community members of the barrios Los Olivos, Bosque Calderón Tejada, Juan 23, and Nueva Granada, who have spent countless hours picking up trash and planting native vegetation along Quebrada Las Delicias. Thank you very much.